So my guest tonight is none other than Rodney Matthews. So let's start the show with the band he's probably best known for collaborating with. This is Magnum. Rodney Matthews, welcome to My Planet Rocks.
Thank you very much. It's very kind of you to invite me.
I think lots of people, I hope that I'm speaking for lots of Planet Rock listeners when I say that it always completely fascinates me when I speak to people who've drawn the album covers that so many of us have just sat and pored over while we've been listening to this music that really kind of makes our lives. And the album covers are inextricably attached to our love of the music. So you are incredibly important.
Oh, very kind again. I think you're right. We get accustomed to well, in the old days you'd buy a vinyl album and you put it on the turntable. The first thing you'd do is sit down, and everything was big, 12 inches square, and the image on the albums would relate to the music and vice versa, and become inseparable in the end. It was great. Well, it still is now. I'm fortunate in that I came along at a time when illustration was popular on album covers. It's not just a photograph of the artist or the band. You got the opportunity to put a bit of yourself into someone else's project, and I think that's quite pleasing. Especially if you get it right.
Well, exactly. Let's take one of your song choices first, and then we'll have a bit of a chat and see how you actually, maybe how you started doing this in the first place. You've chosen The Shadows and Apache, which tell us why this one, because it's a huge tune, Rodney.
Yeah, well, it goes back a long way. At that time, when just 1959, 1960, just getting into music and listening to Eddie Cochran, and most of the stuff was American, but it was this British band, The Shadows, that took me. So I had this little record player. It was like a dinner plate size thing, and I used to put that on and turn it up at full volume and play along on this ancient drum kit. I bought all their stuff, and I went to see them in the local concert hall in Bristol, the Coast Hall, and I couldn't get enough of it.
That was Apache from The Shadows, as chosen by my guest tonight on My Planet Rocks. It's artist Rodney Matthews. And Rodney, for more than 5 decades, you've been creating fantasy-themed album covers, but you were explaining there that it was The Shadows that really kicked off your love of rock and roll and specifically the drums. How come you ended up as more of an artist than a musician? Did you make a conscious choice?
Well, first of all, I'm probably a far better artist and drummer. But at that time, I had 2 options of things I could do reasonably well. And one sort of really raised itself above the other, the art. I had some breaks in the 70s I didn't get with music. It was really very disappointing in that record companies, you had to have a record company in those days, as you know, but they turned us down hand over fist. And eventually I thought, well, we're just no good. Well, I'll have to do something else. There was a bloke from King Crimson, Pete Sinfield, and he tried to help our band get a recording contract. And with CBS was the last one. And when they finally turned us down, I thought, I've had enough of this. I'll go for the art. But I still kept my hand in with local jazz bands and all sorts of bits and pieces.
Well, the next track I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about, you've chosen Cream's Sunshine of Your Love. And I know that your band supported Cream at the Bristol Corn Exchange, am I right?
Yes, we did.
I'm going to take that as a win, Rodney. That you know, that's pretty. I mean, I don't know anyone else who supported Cream. That's amazing.
Yeah, I even got them to sign a little card that I had with my band's sort of publicity card in my pocket, and I got them to sign it. So I put it out and show it off occasionally. Eric Clapton was God at that time.
On the way, more of Rodney's musical choices coming up here on My Planet Rocks. As chosen by my guest tonight on My Planet Rocks, it's artist Rodney Matthews. And Rodney, we need to really start talking about the stuff that you've done. I mean, you've worked with so many different rock and metal acts over the years, such as Thin Lizzy, Nazareth, Magnum, Diamond Head, Asia, Praying Mantis, Tigers of Pantang. That's probably not nowhere near touch the size of everything. But that's just to give a flavour for maybe people who aren't completely familiar with everything you've done. I understand you've is it about 150 album covers you've done?
Yeah, give or take a few. I can't remember them all. Lizzy was the first one. Thin Lizzy was the EP, New Day. But because I worked in this Plastic Dog office in Bristol, it was also a folk agency. So you used to get all these folk musicians come in and insist that they played you their latest song on acoustic guitar, that is the way I actually got into doing album covers as a career. Thin Lizzy was a good one, and I got to know the band as a result of doing it, which was quite funny because at that time they were utterly unknown, and I'm sitting there sort of talking a load of nonsense with Phil in it and the other two.
Do you know what? You haven't chosen any Thin Lizzy, Rodney, but you're more than welcome to if there's anything you'd like to choose by Lizzy.
Okay, well, while on the subject of Thin Lizzy, why don't we go for The Boys Are Back in Town?
It's Thin Lizzy on My Planet Rocks, chosen by my guest tonight, Rodney Matthews, the artist. And Rodney, there's no way we can talk to you without talking about Magnum. Your relationship with them and their relationship with you is amazing. I mean, 13 album covers, that's incredible. Your careers are sort of forever intertwined, really, aren't they? How did you start working with them? Where did it come from?
I used to buy these ancient sort of music papers like Sounds and NME and that sort of thing. In one such paper, I read an article that was about Magnum and in particular Tony Clark. And I just like this bloke's worldview, the things he talked about and the things that he put into his lyrics. I think he's actually a poet for our age. He's a rock poet. I love his stuff. I love his lyrics. And so I sent him some samples, and he came back and he said, I really like this stuff. We could sort of great on an album. The first one was Chase the Dragon, because thereafter Tony would fetch out the proverbial beer mat and draw something on there rather badly and say, this is what I want. You'd think, okay, quite a lot of detail in that. That's going to cost a few quid. And then he'd say, oh, and can I have this on there? And can I have a bit of something there? And I want something in the sky. And you think, yeah, okay. Going to make a loss on this one.
So is that what he did for On a Storyteller's Night? Because you've chosen the title track.
Yeah. Well, Storyteller's Night, he wasn't so specific. He just, I want this geezer. That's how he talked. He said, I want this geezer sitting at a table telling a story to a lot of people. He didn't say goblins or whatever. I'm looking across there because I've actually got the original pencil sketch on the wall.
Oh, that's amazing.
He's saying to me, he's telling this frightening story, that the people are amazed. And so I thought, okay, that was about it. It's usually a lot more than that. And so I went off and I thought about human beings, that would be boring. Why not a load of goblins and gnomes and pixies and things coming from, which is what I did. And it's actually been my most popular band-related image of all time.
Rodney, I'm going to talk about, because we're going to mention Tony Clarkin and Bob Catley a little bit later on, but I'm going to go back to the back to talking about the artwork. One of the reasons that we're talking to you is because you have so kindly designed a Planet Rock T-shirt, the Cash for Kids T-shirts. And there's a couple of other blokes who are in very good company to be able to also be designing the T-shirts as well as you. I don't know if they're as good as you, Ronnie Wood and Rob Halford.
Ronnie Wood is certainly much better than me, but I didn't know Rob Halford was, Sandy would have designed.
Neither did I. Who knew? But Rodney, tell us a little bit about the T-shirt that you've designed and why you said yes to the idea.
Well, I always like to get involved with charity work for good causes. Something that I'm personally involved with. Sort of this meshing of art and music has become part of me. Any opportunity, I'll snap it up, basically. This was an idea. These critters, and they were originally called the Violent Mice. They were set into a poem I wrote about classic rock bands, and as they're not being used, I thought, yeah, they'd be great. We made a few modifications, and I just thought it would be great for a T-shirt, for kids and adults at the same time. It's not easy to please kids and adults at one shot, but I thought that is the nearest thing that I could actually propose, and it's got energy about it and humor, and that's one of the sides of my art that people don't know much about. I actually do humorous stuff as well. I'm working on some stuff with John Cleese at the moment. Don't get a lot more humorous than him. The rock fans see me for what they know, the album covers, but I suppose a good 50% of what I do is utterly different. But it's got the same feel about it, the same. I try to get humor in things. I try to get energy. It's a fantasy genre, but, it's flexible.
Well, that's it. And the versatility, even working with different bands, you will need that versatility because they're not all going to want to work in the same way or they're not going to, all want the same thing. But like you said, designing a T-shirt, you get for Planet Rock, you get to inject a little bit more of something else, another side of the way you work into that. Let's take another of your tracks, Rodney, before we let you go. You've chosen Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Goode, which lots of people can arguably say, and I'm sure certainly a lot of artists that I've spoken to on this show, cite Chuck Berry as like the beginning of their musical awakenings. But why did you pick that one for your My Planet Rock, one of your My Planet Rock tracks?
It was always there, I remember many years ago when you were playing a gig in some seedy end of the country somewhere, and the audience were playing up a bit and not too happy with this progressive rock sort of stuff that we played. So you'd throw in Johnny B. Goode, and that would get them back on your side. It's just it's rock and roll in the sort of raw sense, and it was the number that we chose, Sarah and me, at our wedding in Scotland for the first dance, by which time, I'd sort of been quite a lot of wine and various things that I still managed to bop about because it was Chuck Berry and it was Johnny B. Goode.
Who else but Chuck Berry? And Johnny B. Goode, as chosen by my guest tonight on My Planet Rocks, it's artist Rodney Matthews. And Rodney, there are so many tracks we could have played during this show from artists for whom you have designed incredible album covers. But I think if we played them all, we'd be here for about a week, which wouldn't be a bad thing. You know, the Rodney Matthews Marathon. I don't think that's a bad idea. Maybe what we should do now, I did mention that we were going to play a track of yours because you have been ever so humble about your own musical career. And your latest single is called Lost in the Wild Wood, on which you play the drums and you wrote the lyrics. But Tony Clarkin from Magnum wrote part of the track, plays guitar on it, and Bob Catley provides vocals as well. And if that was not enough, son of Rick Wakeman, Mr. Oliver Wakeman, is on keyboards as well. How did all that come together?
As you know, Tony Clarkin comes to me every now and again, and he wants an album doing. You know, it sort of takes me a very long time to do it, and the money doesn't cover the expenses normally. But I love working for Magnum. They're a great bunch of lads, and we've had so much fun. So I thought, what can I do about this? So I said to Tony, look, if I do your next album cover for nothing, no charge, which I'm working on now. I've done the pencil sketch, and it's been approved. It's just Basil Porter's getting in the way at the moment, but I will get onto it. And I said, if I do your album for nothing, will you sort of involve yourself in this single that I'm doing? And I said, if you can get Catley on board as well, I'll kiss your boots. And that's what he did. So it was a deal. It's like an old-fashioned bartering system. And he's risking his career playing on my on my tune, but he's getting the job done. And that was how it came about.
Well, Rodney, it's been wonderful to talk to you about your career, and I feel like I have barely even scratched the surface because we've talked about so little of it. But it is amazing how quickly an hour goes when there's lots of great music to talk about as well. But Rodney, thank you so much for being a guest on My Planet Rocks. It's been really wonderful just to get a tiny insight into your fascinating mind. You know, when I think of some of your album covers, all of the album covers that I've seen, it's just, it always amazes me how people can get this stuff from their brains onto a piece of paper. So on behalf of I think all Planet Rock fans who love the music that you have created the album covers for, thank you very much indeed. And I know lots of Planet Rock fans will want to get their hands on those limited edition Cash for Kids t-shirts as well. So Rodney, thank you so much. It's been really wonderful to talk to you.
Thanks, Liz.
The final choice of my guest tonight, artist Rodney Matthews, who's designed one of 3 exclusive t-shirts for Planet Rock, with all profits going to help our charity Cash for Kids.